So, road mapping. As part of a recent discussion about the guide, represented by the right monitor, you may or may not have watched this video. The guide is a conceptual model for something that helps me overcome choice paralysis when I want to work, but I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I also don't want to be too influenced by performance, like optimizations of YouTube metrics. I've been kind of road mapping and mind mapping, reminding myself of all the different areas of work that I have and like things I want to achieve with them and steps that are required to get there. I find it quite important. But one thing that's interesting about doing this is it takes a bit of time, but sometimes you highlight requirements that come up repeatedly that you didn't actually realize you needed to do. So for example, I noticed that in a lot of things I want to do between different brands and services, there comes a point in several different trees of possibility represented by the blue, where I need a place of mentionable things for the main channel. Like a list of things I've done elsewhere that every time I make a main channel video, I say something on the list and then I get rid of it, a bit like a queue, effectively. So that whenever work is done in other areas, it gets added to the list and then I can mention it and get rid of it. Like self-sponsorship, I suppose that's the way to think about it. And it just kept popping up again and again and again. And I realized, wait, why don't I have a list like that? I mean, I've done it with sponsors in the past, but why don't I have it for myself? Probably because you don't think you need it, because you are the creator. So surely you'd remember to mention the things you've worked on. But no, I was like, oh, okay, that's weird. Sometimes like putting everything next to each other and doing like a flowchart process just kind of helps you to think about things in a slightly different way, more like a top-down perspective where you're kind of shortcutting or subverting your regular perception of how you think about your work. That sometimes it actually helps you to identify things that are actually useful. However, hiding this away on an iPad is maybe a little bit tricky. I'm trying to wonder if there's a way I can integrate it with my session data space that I was working on that kind of helps me to pick out things to do and gives me assignments for things that I might be interested in that are importantly not modified by things such as a desire for a high view count or optimizing for income or anything like that. If those things happen, they're good, they're fine, they're happy accidents, but they cannot be the guiding factor for anything. So I just need to try and think about whether there's a way to add this somewhere in there. Problem is with Notion I'm using, they don't exactly have mind mapping. But even if there was mind mapping, it would never be as good as being able to draw. So maybe I'll just need to, I don't know, keep it like that. Something or other. Maybe that's kind of effective as it is. Then I can just pick it up and take it away with me. Just keeps it there. Speaking of which, I've really been enjoying the iPad. I didn't know whether I would kind of need one, but it's actually been really great for studies as well. Sometimes I just take this with me when I sit around like the pool or something. Like if my family's swimming, I'll sit there and I'll do some studies, and you can kind of split things up across the screen. So you can have like the internet browser on one side and your notes on another. And the writing it's extremely natural. Like they really put a lot of effort into the Apple Pencil. Expensive though, obviously, but I've been quite happy with it. So maybe let's actually talk about what's on the roadmap, shall we? Rather than keep you in suspense. So the roadmap is supposed to encompass all different areas of my life, but especially work, but also study. But we've got a main emphasis on work. I suppose another way of thinking about this is like a tech tree. You know, you play games, especially logistics games or technological games where you have a tech tree, you unlock things in a flowchart step by step, and then it kind of opens up new possibilities. That makes a lot of sense for me thinking about things like this studio, with making equipment or getting equipment that allows me to do certain projects. For example, like a really nice photogrammetry setup allows for other types of products to be made relating to scanning content in. So if you think about it like a tech tree, then, well, there's a few requirements that are needed there before you get to the end goal. So for example, under the services section, which I need to open freelance services, I need to do text for the various services for the store page, images for possibilities, so for showing clients the different types of styles that can be achieved for different types of work, forms for registering interest if this services aren't available yet, then making those pages and the forms available, then begin to mention them on the main channel, which requires there to be the list of mentionable things for the main channel, self-sponsorship. Then that begins a loop of them researching other sources for contacts and then doing trial runs, so test assignments for myself to test the efficiency of service systems, which then also provides content for like other channels and products. Because if I'm doing test assignments, like how the guide will be generating them for me, then why not feed it all back in? So that's services. Then for branding projects which aren't off the ground yet, like parasocial therapy, we've got write up general questions, which I need to do for the Blender Market team, Autotroph, first and foremost. Then it splits into two different flows through the tree. So I've got write proposal for creators, because I want to get creators in a loop of doing interviews with them for the Parasocial channel. I'll go and list out the first creators I want to include, then send the first proposal to creators. And then the other part of the tree branches off to Autotroph, write questions for Autotroph, wait for responses, proofread, record, one split for YouTube, one split for setting up a new podcast for Spotify for Parasocial Therapy, and the place to do that. So that's the tag tree for that. Then for Blender Halt, the other Blender channel, there's more specified for workshop content, which I made some stuff for and then took a little break. So in brackets, session, because it's going to be mediated by the guide, plan out videos for deep dives. So not specific plans, but I wanted to do a deep dive series in Blender that was just generally me sitting down doing workshops for every kind of corner of the interface or main features. Add deep dive areas to session list. So that's why I've got session in brackets. So when I write down the vague areas I want to talk about, I put them in here so they can be kind of filtered into the guide system. Respond and go, deconstruct, which means move them to the waterfall when they're done. Flag for main channel mentions. So once those series are done and up, then put them in the main channel mention list so I can self-sponsor them. So that's where I start realizing that this list of having mentionable things, like a sponsorship queue for myself, starts breaching into many different areas of the roadmap. Another one, Codesalt Online channel, session in brackets again, because it's mediated by the same system. Look at each product that we've made and list main features, with the idea being that if I just write down all the main features, then it gives me stuff to investigate. Because if I sat down and thought to myself, yeah, just make videos about your own products or advertisements, you won't actually do them. You need something to tell you, look at this feature. So session, record, discussion, and demo features, flag for mention in main. Again, the list coming up for self-sponsorship. So it's really handy just having like an overview, doing it like a flowchart. What else have we got? Physical artwork. Design and print stencils. Because I've got an idea for doing like physical artworks at stencil base. So that would be... Let me grab these. Obviously, it's been a while since I mentioned my physical artwork. So you know how I was making bases out of like the notes for the YouTube channel and now studies and stuff as well? And there's all like different degrees of complexity, studying health conditions. They're all authentic notes from my life. And I was originally just doing them as collages, right? Where it's just, you know, the doodles and notes slapped together and that'd be interesting enough. But I always felt like there was something missing, something that makes it a bit more purposeful. So what I was thinking of doing was splitting them into categories. So if there are any note bases that are mostly like personal medical study related notes into a base, then I would design a stencil that I can spray paint, but the stencil would be a logo, a symbol, something that I have designed that represents health conditions for me. So then that spray marker, graffiti, effectively, will be put onto all the medical related bases. So it'll be like a series with a consistent theme, a consistent symbol, but tagged onto collages of my actual physical notes. So there'll be different categories. If it's anything that's just related to my general YouTube, then the stencil would be like my main logo. And if it's anything else, we'd have a graffiti stencil for each of those. I like the idea of doing graffiti rather than like, I'm not really interested in traditional 2D art, but I've always had a thing for graffiti ever since Mark Echo's Getting Up. I don't know if anyone remembers that video game. I think it was on PlayStation 2. I loved that as a kid. And I loved urban exploration, free running, etc., all of that. I just always had a thing for graffiti. The idea of marking something pristine just sounded really exciting. I never did that, by the way. I never vandalized anything, but just the idea of it was fun. So I kind of like to do that with the physical stuff. I was just kind of waiting for an idea to make it whole, something to complete it. And I feel like that would do it. So anyway, I made notes about that on the roadmap. I've got a project I want to do with the family, which I won't speak about, but that's on the roadmap as well. There's space for other areas of the roadmap I need to write out. We got the study part of the roadmap. So at the moment, it's just like a few points about what I want to achieve with that. And then just loose lists about like day planning, a list of my products that I can remember and things I need to make. And yeah, so it's still ongoing, but as I've started doing it, I've, as I said, started noticing things I need to do. So number one, need system to flag things that need mentioning in channel videos like self-sponsorship. 2, keep session updated daily and actually read it. Should be first and last thing we do every day. Number 3, clearly outline goals and philosophies for each project/area of focus to highlight purpose. So yeah, what else have we got on here? Master CV. Yeah, I've been building up my CV recently on my website. It's password protected at the moment, but it's because I'm starting to go a bit more into professional fields that I wanted to have a master CV that has like everything on it. So it's not the kind of thing that you would apply for jobs for, but it's massive because it references everything. So you can kind of cherry pick and choose different categories as you go. Professional presence roadmap. Create structure to store contacts. I can probably integrate that into the data space. Accumulate list of contacts. Can put requests for contacts on main via mentions. So that's can include Blender contacts. So it's starting to put like an idea together for an intelligence gathering subset of the work, and then how to store that as well. Especially if I go into doing consultations, then intelligence gathering will be an important different thing. Actually, on that point, I might just add something about putting study stuff into the data space. Integrate study plans into data space. So I'll put that on there for now. As you can tell from recent videos, already all my videos on this channel, I'm a little bit obsessed with organization because I feel like I need it and it helps. But it's not something that everyone learns early on, which is unpurposeful or purposeless organization where you're just storing stuff in places you'll never use it. It has to be purpose that grows from the center outwards. So you make a change in your workspace, you make some things and you see whether it's compatible with your like data structure. Then if you feel like an improvement is needed in an area, then you make a change and then you carry on like that. You don't just download like a Notion template and then try and use it. That doesn't work. You need to pick a point and then grow from the inside out. Develop your own conceptual models as you go, like guide, artist, reporter. Cool. That's where we'll leave it. Unicorn emoji in the comments if you've made it this far. Windows key and the period key for a secret emoji keyboard. Have a great day, everyone, and I will see you soon.